Have you ever gotten some bad advice from somebody you trust, or maybe even somebody who's an expert in their field, maybe an online guru? Well, that was the case for me recently. See, I travel a lot for work. I take a lot of flights. I rent a lot of cars. And I heard a tip that I thought was really interesting. It turned out it backfired spectacularly. You see, there's this guy out there. His name is Brian Kelly. He's perhaps better known as the Points Guy. And I've followed him for over a decade now. And I gotta say, I love Brian Kelly. I love following the Points Guy. And I recommend, if you travel, to follow him. He's got some great tips, advice, talks a lot about the best deals, best credit cards. And last year, sometime in the summer, he posted a little video to his Instagram account where he talked about how to save money renting a car. It's advice I'd never heard before. Check it out.
Never rent rental cars, so when I had to get an SUV on my recent trip out west, when I was going to leave from Salt Lake City and return at Las Vegas airport, I was shocked when I saw that it was going to be over $2,300 with Hertz for that one-way rental, but it was only $1,000 if I were to pick up and drop off at Salt Lake.
Okay, no surprise here. Most people who rent cars know that it's far more expensive when you don't return to the same location. When you have a one-way rental, you're going to pay a significant premium.
So once I got the car at Salt Lake, I called Hertz and asked them to change my drop-off to Las Vegas. The agent on the phone seemed to have no issue with it, and when I dropped it off, I only paid a $100 fee to return it at a different location. Now, every rate is different. Sometimes I've heard that fee could be up to $300, but it was way cheaper than paying the outrageous amount they wanted when I booked it up front.
Okay, now this is an interesting tip that I'd never really heard of before. It seems like a loophole. Instead of booking a one-way rental, you just book it to return to the same city. After you pick up your rental car, you call the agency, tell them you want to return it to a different city, and yeah, they'll charge you some fee, but you'll save a lot of money. Now, I had the perfect opportunity to test this out on an East Coast road trip beginning in Charleston, South Carolina. I'd rent a car in Charleston, I'd have a meeting there, and then I would head north. I'd drive north all the way up into Virginia, where I had another meeting in Virginia, following which I drive north further all the way past DC into Baltimore. I had one final meeting on Friday of that week in the Baltimore area. Then after driving about 700 miles altogether, I'd drop off my rental car and fly home from Baltimore. Eager to try this out, I go online to kayak.com and I price out the rental cars. As you'd have it, for a mid-sized car, it's about $600 to $700 if I rent it in Charleston and have a one-way rental with a final destination of Baltimore. However, if I do a same destination rental, renting in Charleston, returning to Charleston, I stand to save $200 or $300. So I go ahead and book it. I show up in Charleston, pick up my rental car, have my meeting in Charleston, and then as I'm heading north up to Virginia, I call the rental car agency. They did not like this at all. The agent on the phone was quite rude to me. I ended up talking with a manager and explained that, hey, I needed to return this to Baltimore. And they were very frustrated. It took about 90 minutes on the phone. Finally, they sent me a new contract, but I paid a hefty fee for this. Altogether, it was $900 more to return it in Baltimore. So if I just booked the one-way destination, I would have saved about $600 or $700. The lesson here, don't try this. It's not worth it. The Points Guy, he might have had some unique situation in his Salt Lake City to Las Vegas rental, or maybe they just knew that he's a travel influencer and decided to give him a good deal. But whatever it is, I don't think that this is a common practice. You'd hear about it. Now, there's one little clip at the very beginning where the Points Guy mentioned that he doesn't rent a lot of cars.
Never rent rental cars.
Never rent rental cars. Never rent rental cars.
Turns out I do rent a lot of cars. I've driven rental cars all over the world in over 50 countries, from Jamaica to Portugal to Australia, and I've never heard of this situation. So I would strongly not recommend this. If you do have to do a one-way rental, just book it. You're going to have to pay that fee, but it is not worth the penalty of changing on the fly unless it's some really unique situation. Even the Points Guy, who I admire and respect, I don't think was right on this one, and I would certainly keep that in mind. Sometimes the gurus, they know a lot. you might trust and respect them, but if it doesn't feel right, if you don't trust it in your gut, there might be something to that.